I wanted to get everyone started this morning by asking you guys to put yourselves in the shoes of a business person thinking about making an investment. And maybe some of you in this room have had some personal experience with that. Maybe some of you have had a chance to direct their retirement funds, or maybe you're a young person hoping to be an entrepreneur and own your own business one day. And I'd like you to think, what questions would you ask yourself about that investment? I know probably many of us here would want to know what the payoff is going to be. And there's a lot of ways to measure that. So if you're a coffee shop owner thinking about buying an espresso machine, you might count up the number of drinks it could create and what that profit might be. If you're an investor, you might track the performance of a mutual fund to get a sense for what the return on your investment in that fund would be. But for many in my generation, the biggest investment many of us are going to make is in our own education. And there's very little information out there about what the payoff to that investment is going to be for us, and that makes it a real challenge. And my name's Roy Selvin. I'm the policy director at Young Invincibles, and we're a youth advocacy organization for young adults ages 18 to 34. And I'm honored to be here today with a bipartisan group of members of Congress who, so rare nowadays, have taken a look at one of these major challenges facing our generation that I just mentioned and decided to get together and do something about that. And they are Senator Wyden of Oregon, Senator Warner of Virginia, Representative Andrews of New Jersey, and Representative Hunter of California, and Senator Rubio of Florida. And we're also delighted to be joined by a number of students. We have members of the Howard University Upward Bound program. We have students and parents from T.C. Williams High in Virginia, as well as some school counselors from the Alexandria School District and Loudoun County School District in Northern Virginia. And they're going to be able to share with us some of the challenges that our generation is facing in being able to apply for schools and choose the one that's right for them. And there are a lot of challenges for our generation out there right now. The unemployment rate for young people ages 18 to 29 is 11.7%, and it's been in double digits for 53 months now. And understandably, it's created a lot of anxiety for young people, and more of us are enrolling in higher education than ever before, which is a great thing. But we're taking on more and more levels of debt to be able to finance our education. And so with the promise of monthly loan payments well into our 20s and often into our 30s and beyond, that puts a lot of pressure on making the right decision about where you're going to go to school. But as I mentioned, there's no really way to tell if your two-year program or your four-year program or your credential can help you make enough to afford your loans and earn a living when you get out. And as a consequence, there's a lot of young people that set out to get into higher education to fulfill their dreams and just end up in a pile of debt with no way to get out. And I don't think we want to suggest here that going to college is all about getting that salary bump when you graduate. And there's a lot of value in an education just to know more about the world, or and in addition, I don't think we really want to tell students to simply take the highest salary job that they can find. Obviously, there's important things like building a family, or going into public service, or just following your passion. So there's lots of values out there that that we'd want to pursue. But I think we all know that one of the best things about markets and when they work best for individuals is when individuals are empowered with information to make the right choice for them, to shape the course of their own destiny. To make decisions that meet their needs and help them pursue their dreams. And I think that's the kind of sentiment that really brings us here today. So Senators Wyden and Rubio and Warner and Representatives Hunter and Andrews are really looking to reform the market for higher education so that it works better for consumers, for students. And they're introducing a bill called the Student Right to Know Before You Owe Act. And what it would do is it would organize and make available a lot of information that we already collect about the higher education system. And that way, prospective students and their families would have the ability to compare things like student debt, the outcomes of different schools, employment and wage outcomes, and even by a particular program at a different school. So when you're a student trying to figure out where you want to go, you can compare these and figure out what works best for you. And this is all the more important in a time of skyrocketing college costs and rising student debt. And it's important that we have that information out there. So now I want to open it up for a short discussion between the members of Congress and some of our students and counselors and parents. And I think it probably makes sense. I know Senators Wyden and Rubio, you guys have been champions on this for a long time. If you'd like to start us off with sort of giving us some background on the bill and why you've introduced it.
First of all, we're glad you all are here, and you're juniors, and we declared this a speech-free zone, so you are not going to get any windy speeches from us this morning. And just a couple of comments. I mean, you all are juniors. I think, didn't you say you're juniors? And what was striking to us when we got this going is right now in America, it is easier to get the pros and cons of buying a used car on Carfax than it is to get into the nuts and bolts of the value of an education, particularly at a time when it's so clear that that is the path to being able to have a career where you can have the kinds of choices that you want. So we took a look at the landscape, and there's a boatload of information out there. It's all strewn all over the countryside. And we said we ought to make it available in one place, and we want to make it user-friendly. And I think that's what we've been able to design in the Student Right to Know Before You Go Act. In one place, you can get information about graduation rates, about debt levels, about remedial education, and for the first time, what you are likely to earn if you got a degree from a particular school. And let's give a big round of applause to the Young Invincibles, because this is a great organization. They've got a great moderator, and they've been with us on this from the very beginning. And to be able to have this information so you can make the choice you want to make. This is not telling you you can't get a degree or something you want to pursue. I remember one of the conversations Senator Rubio and Senator Warner and I had early on. We're not going to dictate to you what degree you ought to get. That's your choice. We want to empower you.
You want to be a sociology major, you can still do that.
And maybe you're going to do multidisciplinary. Maybe you're going to do sociology and engineering. The point is, it's your choice. And that's what we do. Two other points real quickly. The first is, we think that this is the beginning of a new focus on education policy. Education in the past has always been about access to education. We want to make sure that you know we support access. That's things like Pell Grants and Stafford loans and the like. But it's never been so much about the value. And now with this legislation, we're going to be able to incorporate into this whole debate a new focus on value. So it will, in effect, be access plus. You will still have policymakers like us supporting Stafford loans and Pell Grants, everything that gets you into the door. But from this point on, and it's kind of like education policies at a fork in the road, where are we going to go for the future? It is now going to have a new focus on value. And let me break the speech making off, hand it over to my colleague, Senator Warner, and we'll just all get in the debate.
Well, thank you, Ron, and I also want to welcome you all here and just add in a certain way, it's a little crazy that we even have to pass a bill because this information's already collected, but it's collected at the state level or the local level. And there's no single user-friendly place where, as Senator Wyden said, you can go and say, all right, I got to decide where I want to go to school, what I want to study, what's my chances if I study this, I'm going to actually get a job, and how well-paying is that job going to be? 3/4 of the jobs coming out of being created in America today are going to require something beyond high school. It may not be a 4-year degree even. One of the things we want to emphasize as well, this I think will be a particularly valuable tool for community college students, because a lot of students are choosing to go back for more education mid-career. And I think making those kind of choices, making that kind of investment mid-career is even more when you need this information. So we think this is a common sense, bipartisan, shouldn't be any kind of disagreement. Candidly, some of the pushback has come from some of the institutions who don't want to share this information because they don't want to have this all out in the marketplace. We think you all deserve to know, and you ought to have this data before you decide. Again, we're not trying to tell you, as Senator Wyden said, what you should take or not take. We're not trying to say what program is good or not good. but no one should be afraid of having the kind of information about the graduation rates, what you should expect that you're going to probably have to cost, what you should be able to expect in terms of chances of getting a job, and if you get a job, what that job's going to pay. So we hope this is a bipartisan group. You know, it's even wilder than bipartisan. It's both House and Senate working together. So our hope is that this is the kind of legislation, as Senator Wyden mentioned as well, Ron mentioned as well, that we're going to make sure we get you access, help try to give you the tools to get access, but also give you the tools to then make what we hope will be the most informed choice possible.
Quite a challenge. How many people here have ever bought a phone? Raise your hand. Yeah. I have daughters who are 20 and 18. My hair's turning gray. And before they buy a phone, they essentially ask two questions. How much will it cost, and what can I do with it? And if it doesn't have the features they want or it costs too much, they don't buy it. They're in control of that decision. But they're also asking, if I go to a certain school and I borrow a certain amount of money and I invest a certain amount of my energy into it, what can I do with it? And as Senator Wyden said, Senator Warner said, that information's out there, but you could probably make a full-time job out of finding it. You could spend an awful lot of time searching the web and asking people. We just believe, Republican and Democrat, House and Senate, we should make it easy for you to find that information. And then you can decide how to put value on that. Some people are most motivated by what kind of courses are offered. Others are motivated by what kind of student body they'll be sharing their experience with. Others want to know how much money they'll have to borrow. Some want to know, what kind of job or graduate school they'll be able to go to after they graduate. Others want to know how much money they were going to make. It should be up to you to decide how to assess the importance of each one of those factors. Not us, not the college or university. You and your family should make that decision. It's pretty simple. The more information you have, the more power you have. The more power you have, the better choice you make. The better choice you make, the stronger our country is. So we hope you can support this legislation like we do.
I'm Duncan Hunter from San Diego. I think I'm the youngest person up here. Let me ask you this. How many of you are the first time in your families will be the very first ones going to college in your families? It used to be, or had gone to college. It used to be that just going to college was enough. That's all you had to do. You had to go get that college degree, and then you could go into whatever you wanted to, even if it was a business degree. You could go work in engineering, vice versa, as long as you had that college degree. That's changed now. And my angle on this, I'm only 36. I was in college during the big tech boom in the 90s when the internet started rolling. And what I kind of learned is now there is so much data out there. You read about big data all the time. I mean, we all Google. You can find anything on the internet. If you put your mind to it, you can take information from a lot of different sources and come together with what you know is the right answer, because all of this data exists out there. And it's time that we start exploiting all of that data that's out there. And one reason I think this is so important is coming together. Only the federal government at this level, I think, is the only mechanism that can put all of this big data together and then basically subdivide it and partition it so that you can get answers about going to college. I had buddies when I went to college. I didn't do very well in school, by the way. I graduated with a 1.8 GPA out of high school. That's pretty low. I barely got into college. I applied to one university in San Diego, barely got into there. I was on academic probation, switched majors about 4 times. I had buddies that were working construction making $80,000 a year in the 90s. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I in school? I don't need to be here for what I want to do, especially internet stuff. You had a lot of internet guys who started Facebook and Google that didn't even finish college. They dropped out. So I'm thinking, why am I even going to school? If this was in place back then, I would have known why I'm going to school, and I would have had goals and things that I look forward to, benchmarks that I could measure and say, this is why I'm going to school. I'm going to graduate in this much amount of time, and I'm going to make this much money, hopefully, and I'll have a chance of getting a job. This world now exists for you, and that's what's exciting about this. Is this data is out there. We're going to put it together in a way that you and your parents and family and friends can understand so you can make the right decision. And it's all about empowering you and your families to do the right thing. And I'm just happy to be here with such great folks.
Reach. Thank you. And I'll just be very brief. I echo everything they said. My interest in this really is when I graduated college, up until last year, I owed $120,000 in loans between undergrad and law school. So that's a lot. I can tell you at the end, before I paid it off, thanks to my book, which you can get on paperback now, available for $9.99. I was paying like $800 a month. There was a point when I was paying $1,300 a month in my student loans. Look, I don't regret any of it. I'm glad I went to law school and the investment and so forth. But I can tell you that I think I would have behaved very differently in terms of the loans I took out and who I took them out from had I known about it when I was in school, you know, at the time that I was there. If I had, no one ever showed me, this is how much you can expect to make, this is how much you're going to owe, this is how much you're going to pay a month, you decide. I didn't have any of those choices. You get, the difference between a student loan and the other loans is most loans, when you take them out, the next month you got to make the first payment. With student loans, you take them out, you're not making payments for 4 or 5 years down the road, and human nature is, well, you know, that, we'll worry about it then. The problem is people don't realize with that, the average debt loan, I think, is about $27,000 now. It's up to $1 trillion, and you can't get rid of it. It's with you even through bankruptcy. And so if you graduate college, you start to work, you're trying to start a family, you're trying to move in and own your home, your first home, you already start out with $27,000 in debt around your neck. That holds you down. So we've got to address this in the sense that people need to have more information moving forward, and that's why I'm, you know, grateful to be here. Yeah, exactly. You know, people kept asking, who's this Sally Mae person that keeps taking money out of your account every month? But really, it was at its peak. It was at like $1,300 a month, and then I consolidated them. You know, where you bring them all into one and you whatever, and that helped. But even that was something I wasn't fully aware of going in. You know, look, I should have done. I had a 2.1 out of high school, so I was a little better. But I should have done better in high school. I probably could have saved myself some money had I done that. I made some bad decisions in that regard. Once I got to school, I got very serious about it, especially in undergrad. I went to a public university, University of Florida, which was cost-effective. Then I went to a private law school, and that's where the costs got crazy. And then, you know, in the summer when you're doing all the other stuff to get ready for the bar. And then if you don't pay them, they start to compound because you got to defer them and forbear them. There's consequences to that as well. My point is, this is information I wish I had had. And this is information that I think if more people had, they might seek some other options in terms of either what they're studying, but more importantly, what kind of loans they're taking out and from who.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to hear from some students about some of the challenges you guys are facing in the college application process, some of the resources you use, and if you guys have any questions for me.
College students who are thinking about what's coming next. Yep.
It sounds to me, my name is Anna. I'm TC Williams. I'm a junior. And to me, it sounds like it will be a great benefit because I'm going to be the first one to graduate from my family. And it's kind of hard when your parents don't really know what the college process is. And you're basically the first one. You have to do the research. You're the one who has to find out, what am I going to do with my life? Where am I going to go? So to me, I just wanted to compliment that. It sounds like a great benefit because I'm basically doing the research on my own. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate what my parents are doing for me, but it's just me. They don't really know what I'm going to do with this process. So I think that it will be a great benefit for students like me.
And, you know, we've mentioned this, but I think it's important to re-mention, you know, we're not putting some new requirement on a college. They have to report a lot of this information anyway, but it's reported at the state level or it's reported at the college system level. We're just saying we got to take this information and make it user-friendly.
Yeah, thank you.
Down the road, I think this also can help to hold down tuition costs and force schools that really aren't coming up to par to compete. Because let's say you have school A over here, and they have low graduation rates, high remedial education, and big costs. And school B is in good shape in each one of those kinds of areas. If school A doesn't clean up its act, school A goes out of business, and school B is in a better position to offer you the kind of stuff you guys want.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that leads into another good question about It'd be great to hear from some students and parents what kind of financial planning you guys are doing, some of the challenges that you guys face in the process of planning for paying for college.
Hi, I'm Deja. I go to Largo High School in PG County. But with financial stuff, like, they don't really tell you that when you take out, like, loans, like, it's interest rates and stuff like that. So it would be better to know, like, how I should, like, you know, what type of scholarships I would be searching for. Because there's a lot of scholarships out there, but you have to look, like, extremely hard for them. It's like, yes, I mean, it would just be more helpful to know, like, you know, what loans would be better for me and the interest rates, whether they're fixed or they'll, you know. And then also what someone was saying, how much I would make and how much it would cost for me to, like, you know, pay it back, because I don't want to be in, like, you know, more debt and I can't afford it too.
And just on that note, it's not, and this is one of the parts that we get into some resistance from schools. You can graduate from the same program, but graduates from some schools make a little bit more than graduates from others for a lot of different reasons, marketplace, prestige. That's the kind of information that we've struggled to find. And I'll be honest with you, some of the it's not tremendous opposition, but some of the opposition to this effort is from people that argue that they're trying to protect your privacy. And the reality of it is that there's not going to be any information about how much you, the individual, is making. No one's going to be able to go online and find out this is how much John Smith is making 5 years after he graduated. It's a statistical thing. It would be the you know, the cost-benefit analysis that you've talked about.
Too, we would like to do this, frankly, for like K through 12 too, but we don't because of that privacy issue. We put our last 4 of our Social Security numbers. I don't know who has. I mean, anybody have a Google account or a cell phone account? That you have to have your last 4 that you give all the time. They don't put the rest of your information with your address on the internet for people to find. This is not hard. This is not new. Privacy is easy now, and that's something that technology and advancement in technology, we are there now. We're at the point where you can have this information aggregated together with no privacy issues whatsoever, and that is the pushback that I even see from my colleagues. That's their excuse or their reason to not want to do this. But this is competition. It was the senator mentioned it. This is competition, and competition between universities means good things for you because you're the consumer, and if they have to compete, you win.
One other thing that is sort of brings higher education into the world in which the rest of us are actually living. If you want to buy an appliance, like a microwave or refrigerator, you can go online and learn everything about that appliance. You can read other people's opinions who've used it. You can figure out what kind of accidents it's had, how much electricity it uses. It's all easy. We're used to seeing things that are right there. And I do think the reason there's been some modest resistance to this is that there's some institutions that aren't making the grade. They really don't want to tell their story about what's happening to their graduates, what's happening to their students, and frankly, that's one of the reasons we need this bill. Information is antiseptic. When sunlight shines in, things get cleaner. And I really do believe that the more information there is out there for students and their parents, the better quality higher education. I think we have the best higher education system in the world, but it could be better. And I believe this will make it better.
And you guys want to add something else? Come on, we got some people in the back row. There's somebody to speak up.
How about parents?
Parent or guidance counselors back there?
Everybody's going to be sitting around the kitchen.
Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Take that one. Take that one.
Anyone want to say anything? Hi, good morning. My name is Patricia Braun. I'm from T.C. Williams. This is in direct relation to what I do. I'm the college and career specialist there, and this is so important that you're introducing this legislation. It would help me tremendously with what I do every day. We actually have software that does a portion of what you're trying to do. It does collect the information about the likelihood of students working. It gives you the average salaries based on different states. It really is comprehensive, sophisticated, and does so many things. But of course, our superintendent and our school district purchases it. And most schools cannot purchase the software. But it's just us using it and using it with the students. It does tell it tells them all kinds of information about colleges. But again, it's about using the information. Most schools don't have it, but it's training everyone to use it, and then of course getting families and students to understand it, and there's so much information in it. So this is just one little piece of how we can start to make it work, but what you're doing is really just making everything transparent, which is the starting point. You have to do that. The information is so vast, there's too much of it, and we spend a great deal of time daily looking for it so that we can convey it to our students and our families and to tell them the truth so that they're making a really good decision. And again, 50% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, so we do explain to them the cost of going to school, the likelihood of the jobs that they'll find after. So we do this every day, but it would be so great to have the information just to show them right in front of their face while we're meeting with them. So this is great. Thank you very much.
I'm Jane Phonash. I'm a counselor in Loudoun County, Virginia, about 20 miles west of here, and I work at our Science Magnet School. I appreciate your efforts to put in one place information that's crucial for my students and their families. I have probably spent more hours this year in conversations with families about how to best spend their child's education dollars than I have in the last 5 or 10 years combined. It certainly is something that is on every parent's mind, and I think they want to be sure that they're providing a strong future for their child and also teaching them about fiscal responsibility. I'm also very pleased to hear you talk about this as sort of the next step. Access was the first step, doing work to ensure that counseling loads at public high schools can be decreased so that students have more access to counselors to help them with this process is important, and also putting in their hands and their parents' and students' hands the information about affordability and loan debt will be another piece that will help us to better serve our students and therefore the country.
Part of the problem is, and it's why we've, Marco, thanks. No. He's trying to fix the immigration issue today too, so he's got his hands full. In addition to this question of adding value to access, what we've come to think is that the federal government really hasn't kept up with the times in this area. For example, we were struck that the way the government measures graduation rates, an institution's graduation rates are only calculated for first-time, full-time students. Well, I think we all know there's a whole lot more to this. There's part-time students, there's new transfer students, there's a whole host of other relationships in a world where we're so mobile and people are trying to raise families and they're trying to figure out what the best careers are. And yet it was like the federal government had this blind spot and didn't even measure graduation rates properly to reflect a very different economy than you would have, say, 15, 20 years ago, when everybody was essentially first-time, full-time student, and that was going to be the only kind of measure. So I think the ability to get information in one place, easy, and have it really reflect what the modern challenges are in this economy and purchasing and education are what we wanted to bring to students and families. I think we've got to...
We're actually coming up on time here.
Yeah, we got a young man.
Oh, one last one.
Are you holding the mic?
Yes, I'm just holding.
Oh, you were.
Okay, I think one more.
One last point, just the fact that, echoing what Ron said, is that, yeah, let's face it, higher ed used to be for their most motivated, top-level students. You know, I'm, like many of you, I'm the first person in my family ever went. My family didn't have the dough to put me through, and you know, I took out loans, but it wasn't as much a long time ago when I went. But you know, now you don't have the option. You know, 3/4 of the jobs in America are going to require at least something after high school. It may not be a 4-year degree. It may be a certification, or it may be an associate's degree. It could be, you know, a lot of other choices. But it's, again, just a little crazy that in 2013, we collect this information and it's buried away in lots of different spots. And maybe a T.C. Williams was able to find the way to pay for it. But, you know, I think it's great T.C.'s got it. But we ought to make sure that not just students at T.C. where they make the investment, but this ought to be a basic right that every student has. And what we're saying is by making sure the information which is already collected is collated, put in a user-friendly form, we're going to make you, give you a better choice.
All right. Well, we're coming up on time here. I just wanted to thank all of the students and parents and counselors for coming to join us today and sharing about some of the challenges that you guys are facing. Definitely want to thank Senator Wyden and Senator Warner for their leadership on this issue, as well as the other members of Congress, Senator Rubio and Representative Hunter, and Representative Andrews. Thank you.
Sign up for Young Invincible.
We'll talk more about that after. But
Advocating for young people.
thank you, Senator. Thank you all.